is VSiN's Football Training Camp Week, only on the Sports Betting Network. This is VSiN Training Camp Today with hosts Nick Whalen and Jeff Erickson.
Hey everybody, welcome to VSiN's Training Camp Today. Jeff Erickson and Nick Whalen from RotoWire with you for another 2-hour show. We're excited about this. We're going to head south today. We're going to hit the NFC South, the AFC South. We got two awesome guests, Alan Syslowski and from RotoWire and Adam Thompson from Bookies.com are going to join us. Nick, we've also got a news-heavy day yesterday. We're not quite fire hose level, but we're beyond a trickle too. We're really starting to pick up a little bit with some pretty significant items here.
We certainly are. Yeah, I wouldn't say it's a fire hose, more of a like if you turn your garden hose on full blast. Yeah. We got a slew of news that impacts the NFL in real life, impacts how we're going to bet this season, and then of course some major fantasy implications with a couple of wide receivers as well. Yep. And I think we could start with TJ Watt though, Jeff. This is something that we've been monitoring pretty closely over the last couple of weeks. You know, got to the point where there were some potential trade rumors kind of circulating around the NFL. That to me never really seemed realistic that the Pittsburgh Steelers would allow TJ Watt to get out of the building. And as we saw yesterday, that was not the case. They make him the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history. Watt does turn 31 midway through this season, but agreed to a 3-year, $123 million extension with the Steelers yesterday afternoon. That, of course, according to Adam Schefter. And, you know, it goes without saying, Jeff, this makes you feel significantly better about the Steelers defense. Just nice to have this distraction out of the way. This is not what you wanted hanging over this team that's already going through plenty of changes, bringing in Aaron Rodgers at quarterback. You didn't want this to be a story as training camp opens next week. And, you know, I think anytime you're handing out a contract to a player north of 30 and the value on that contract is north of $100 million, might make you a little bit queasy. But you know, we've seen plenty of defensive ends specifically continue to play well, continue to be really productive into their mid-30s. So I think this is fine. From a dollar value perspective for the Steelers. We're ultimately talking about a guy who's going to be a Hall of Famer, a 4-time first-team All-Pro, and somebody, Jeff, that I think once again will be in the mix for the Defensive Player of the Year award. You can get him at almost 10-1 right now at the DraftKings Sportsbook.
Yeah, and you know it's a divisional debate every year. It seems like between Myles Garrett and T.J. Watt. If both are healthy, you know, Watt 31 in October, that's a big deal there to watch that. But I mean, it's a 3-year extension. I think I think you're absolutely right. When the Steelers want to sign a player, when they want to make sure he stays in the fold, he stays in the fold. Yeah. Period. I mean that they take care of business all the time, and I'm impressed with how they were able to get this done before the start of training camp too. It's not hovering over. It's not going to be like the Bengals and Trey Hendrickson, where it's just going to be this miserable experience there where you got to worry about whether that he's even going to play at all. Nope. You kind of knew that they were going to be able to take care of that. Big offseason for the Steelers. And I know we spent some time talking about them when we covered the North, but I'll just ask you this real quick. Does this make you more inclined to bet over their 8.5, maybe bet their division at all? Or is this still just kind of just the same?
Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, Jeff, I knew this was going to lead into a Bengals comment, right? As soon as you said, man, I really admire how the Steelers, you know, get their business done. I knew we were somehow going to rope this into, man, I wish that team in Cincinnati would do the same. Look, yeah, I mean, on yesterday's show, I talked about Pittsburgh as a team I don't mind betting to make the playoffs at plus money. If you look at the win total, you know, you're getting a little bit better value on making the playoffs than you are the win total, but it's essentially the same bet, right? Like if they're not making the playoffs in the AFC unless they go over 8.5 wins. So yeah, it certainly makes me feel better about it. I mean, if this, I never saw a scenario in which TJ Watt is playing for another team, but could have seen a scenario in which this goes into training camp. You know, he's missing practices. Maybe he's behind a little bit. You wonder about the conditioning, and you know, as it gets closer and closer to week 1, it's just a narrative that kind of it brings negative vibes to this franchise. So I think the bigger concern to me was, you know, some sort of holdout type of situation as opposed to a trade. But yeah, I think you have to feel much better about the Pittsburgh Steelers now that this is just not going to be an issue as they open camp. And, you know, to go back to the Defensive Player of the Year thing, Jeff, obviously TJ Watt has won this award in the past, won it in 2021. He's been top 4 in Defensive Player of the Year voting in 5 of the last 6 seasons. The only season that he didn't qualify for that, he missed time. I think he actually does make a lot of sense at close to 10-1, especially now with this contract behind him. Since 2010, only 2 defensive backs have won this award. Obviously, Pat Surtain took it home last year. Stephon Gilmore's the other one in 2019. It has been a pass rusher heavy award. And since 2014, Jeff, you got to go back to J.J. Watt, who won it in 2014 for a non-playoff team. Every other defensive player of the year since then, his team made the postseason. So that is somewhat of a prerequisite when you're going through and kind of parsing, all right, who makes sense, who doesn't. That's why I'm not sure I really like Myles Garrett, who has shorter odds at plus 850. Garrett won the award 2 years ago. That was the year, of course, the Browns won 11 games, made the postseason. I don't know if the Browns are getting there this year. And again, over the last decade, that's kind of been a disqualifier if you're looking at Defensive Player of the Year.
It's amazing to think that 2 years ago, the Browns were the winners of the Defensive Player of the Year, the Comeback Player of the Year, and the Coach of the Year. Kind of tells you just how quickly things can change on an era there. There are just how much Deshaun Watson ruins everything, apparently, too. Let's move on. The biggest news fantasy-wise yesterday was the surprise, ruling in the Rashid Rice case. Surprise because I think most people didn't even realize, self included, that it was that the case was ongoing, like that to try that they were going to have this resolution. We thought that there was going to be a long, drawn out process there, that we wouldn't see any sort of any sort of resolution to the case until 2026. Instead, yesterday he received 5 years of probation, 30 days of jail time that he can serve anytime within those 5 years for his role in that multi-car crash. And if you read the details of that situation there, saw a lot more of that there. But for the grace of Henry Ruggs goes him. I mean, it was that close to being just as traumatic and as it was for Ruggs. I mean, it was a really serious case here. Now the disciplinary process will likely happen this season, Nick. We don't know how many games. I've heard anywhere from 2 to 8 as estimates there. So depending on, a lot of people that are self-assigned as experts on that field. I'm going to wait it out, but I do know I'm going to discount him. I think the question is, how much do you discount Rashid Rice? Because Rashid Rice is a guy that had some helium. We were talking about him earlier in the week, right, as a guy who's going in the bottom of the second, beginning of the third round.
Yeah, I think, more than anything, you want to wait and see on what the suspension is going to look like. And to me, that's really the bigger news, what we know now versus what we thought we knew yesterday morning before this ruling came down. And, it was something that I just hadn't really thought about in a while. We've seen some of these cases play out over the course of years. You think of the Alvin Kamara situation where we went through like 2 full years of like, all right, is this going to be the year he's suspended? And then he finally was. It kind of felt like this was going to get kicked down the road maybe another season because, we are in mid-July and training camps open very soon. And it just felt like nothing had really changed on this front. But what the NFL likes to do, Jeff, is wait until that legal process plays out and then step in with their discipline. Like you said, I've heard anything from 2 to 8 games, 2 to 4, 4 to 6 to me. 8 games seems like a lot. I don't think he's going to be suspended for 8 games, but I think somewhere in that 2 to 6 range probably makes sense. And to me, I would guess on the upper side of that. So I can tell you, Jeff, I was on air on SiriusXM actually broadcasting a live FSGA draft when this news broke. And like you said, most drafts that I've seen over the last few weeks, you see Rashid Rice go in that like pick 24 to 30 range. He went 58th and 73rd overall in the 2 drafts that I was a part of on Wednesday. So we're already starting to see that hit. And, there are ripple effects here, right? Obviously, it impacts Rashid Rice and his fantasy value, but does it impact how you think about someone like Xavier Worthy? Does it impact how you think about Hollywood Brown? Does it impact how you think about Patrick Mahomes and the upside of this Chiefs offense overall, especially if this does end up being a 6+ game suspension? We're talking about close to half the season at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. I was all set to upgrade Rice in because we're doing the RotoWire Roundtable rankings. The next set is due this weekend here, and all set to move them up to about 25 or so, 27 maybe, somewhere in that range. And now I'm probably going to be around 60 or so. And keep in mind, he's also coming off the knee injury too. I mean, there's 2 factors here. It's not just the suspension, but there's also the health. The health looked good so far. But it's funny because Brandon Ayuk had a similar injury, and he's going around pick 100. Rice was not getting that sort of discount there. And I know the timing was a little earlier, but it's not that big of a material difference there. So I don't know. We'll see about that one with the suspension. Same holds true with Jordan Addison. Also had his legal process resolved yesterday as well. He pled no contest to a lesser charge to resolve a 2024 DUI citation. The plea agreement, doesn't absolve him from any sort of NFL discipline. I think the consensus is he'll have lesser of a penalty than Rice, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think we're still looking at some sort of suspension for Jordan Addison. And again, that one to me is probably in the 1 to 3 game range, as opposed to something that you could conceivably see stretching to 6 games or beyond. But still something you have to think about if you're going through a fantasy draft right now. Maybe it impacts Minnesota early in the season as far as kind of getting JJ McCarthy off the ground. But this one to me, I'm a little bit less concerned about in terms of number of games missed than I am for Rashid Rice.
Yeah, me too. But, hey, it's just at some point, I'm assuming it's 2. I think that's the operating assumption I'm working under there.
Yep.
And he was going already a little discounted because of the quarterback issue there and all that. So something that we could just watch for there, but that's it. Finally, we got a quick, let's do Mike Williams. Not a huge fantasy impact at this point, but did retire yesterday. And, they did sign Trey Harris at the same time the Chargers did. They really need Trey Harris to step up.
Yes, they do. And that was the case even before Mike Williams retired, because I don't think you could reasonably expect, high-level contributions from Mike Williams at this point in his career. He's going to go down, Jeff. When my future children ask me, Dad, tell me about Mike Williams, I'm going to say, man, he was just an all-time injured guy. One of the most injury-prone NFL players of all time. Called it a career yesterday. Still 10th all-time in receiving in Chargers franchise history. One of those guys that always felt like he was on the cusp of doing more, but the injuries just ended up wrecking his career, and unfortunately, kind of a fitting end.
All right, we're going to go to the NFC South coming up next on Training Camp Today.
What's the guarantee? Eric?
Mike, time to make history. Players in Circa Million make 5 picks against the spread each week with quarterly and full season payouts.
Circa Survivor entries choose one team each week with no point spread. The last one standing wins it all.
We have $21 million on the line. Are you in? Visit circasports.com for details.
So, Paulie, have you had a chance to read the VSiN Daily yet?
Yeah. Came in at 3 a.m. What's Bill doing up that late?
Well, rumor has it, it starts off with a 12-hour meditation session.
Then he just pours himself over film and live TV, really focusing and taking it all in. Bill's in with the biggest insiders, talking trade secrets, strategies, the whole 9, absorbing the info.
And then and only then can the writing process begin.
In Las Vegas, Bill's late night becomes your early morning. Wake up to the very latest betting insights in your inbox with the VSiN Daily. Sign up for free at vsin.com/newsletter.
Hey, it's JVT on the next Follow the Money. We continue training camp week here at VSiN. As we creep closer to the NFL season, it's time to take a serious look at the NFL awards market and where we think we could fire on some long shots. Fantasy Life analyst Kendall Valenzuela joins us to help break down the fantasy football landscape and who will be the best additions to your lineup this season. It's all happening starting at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific, right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
This is VSiN's Football Training Camp Week, only on the Sports Betting Network. You're tuned in to VSiN Training Camp today on the Sports Betting Network.
Welcome back into VSiN Training Camp today, Friday edition. Nick Whalen, Jeff Erickson here with you as we finish out training camp week here on the Sports Betting Network. We're heading to the South today. We'll talk NFC South, talk AFC South, and give you team previews, take a look at some player and team futures for both of those divisions. We'll start with the NFC South, but first, if you're serious about winning this football season, we've been telling you about it all week. Your edge starts right now with the all-new VSiN NFL betting guide. For the first time ever, we're also including fantasy football insights alongside all of our trusted betting content. That means you're getting in-depth previews of all 32 teams, season win total analysis, best bets from VSiN experts, player props, betting projections, and now strategies to help you dominate your fantasy drafts. Right now, you can lock in VSiN's football special for just $175. You get full VSiN Pro access all the way through the Super Bowl. That means you're getting every betting guide. You're getting daily best bets, 24/7 video, exclusive analytics, and all the tools over at VSiN.com. But don't wait. Early bird pricing ends July 31st. Sign up today and get your NFL betting guide at VSiN.com/subscribe. That's VSIN.com/subscribe. Jeff Erickson, let's take a deep dive into the NFC South. This is a division that's been dominated in recent years by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That, of course, goes back to the Tom Brady days, but coming off of a couple division wins over the last two seasons with Baker Mayfield at the helm. A big change, though, for Tampa Bay, losing offensive coordinator Liam Cohen. He is now the head man in Jacksonville. Saw Tampa Bay rip off 10 wins a year ago, despite some injuries throughout the season. They, of course, fell to the Commanders in the first round of the playoffs. That win total coming in at 9.5 at the DK Sportsbook, -115 to the under. You know, one big thing that we've been monitoring in the fantasy space, Jeff, and it certainly applies to betting as well, a big injury to begin the year. Tristan Wirfs, one of the best tackles in football, on the PUP list, expected to miss at least 4 games to begin the year. Is that something that has caused you to recalibrate your evaluation of the Bucs?
It has. And I think this is a fascinating team. I think they're a smartly run team. I think, being able to go from, let's go get Tom Brady. Let's turn that into a thing, making it work, and then redoing it on the fly and not, resuscitating Baker Mayfield's career and turning him into a plus quarterback. Just a fascinating story. Really smart team. But one of the big things, I think the underwritten, kind of the underrated portion of that story, though, is that they've had this elite offensive line, Tristan Wirfs being the cornerstone of that offensive line, maybe one of the 3 best left tackles in the game. And keep in mind, all we know right now is it's a minimum of 4 games. It could be longer. But if you start the year on the PUP list, you miss those 4 games. Those 4 games include a huge divisional game at Atlanta, a game at Houston week 2, home against the Jets, and then home against the Eagles in week 4. At least 2 of those teams will have a pretty good pass rush. And Atlanta's trying to have a better one. The Jets could be decent, but we know the Houston and Philly games, they're going to have their hands full with that. I just think it's fascinating. I think it's a fascinating story to be able to reload with the 3rd offensive coordinator in 3 years. The schedule gets pretty good late. Arizona, New Orleans, Atlanta, 3 home games in a row beginning on November 30th, at Carolina, at Miami versus Carolina again. So 4 out of 6 games at home in that stretch, all winnable games. Yet I'm still looking at this here, Nick, as an under for me. And I think it's that early part of the schedule. Also road games at Seattle, Detroit, Buffalo, and the Rams, even after that first 4-game stretch. So they basically have to go, I think they have to go like 5 and 6 through that early stretch, maybe 6 and 5. And I think they could get there, but I don't think they're going to go 5 and 6 or 6 and 5 to get there. I think they're going to really struggle early on. So I like the under on the Bucs this season.
Jeff, we talked yesterday about some wide receivers that were high and low on this season for fantasy. I'm out on Mike Evans, at cost, at least.
Right.
There's a spot at which I will take Mike Evans, of course. But I'll ask you very simply, is this the year that the 1,000-yard streak ends? And I will also tell you that no player in year 12 of their career, no wide receiver that is, has put up 1,000 yards in year 12 since Larry Fitzgerald all the way back in 2015.
I think it might be. And the books seem to think so too with the way they're setting the line. 950 and a half is the number at DK. You can find it as low as 925.5 on FanDuel, minus 114 each way on that one there. So that kind of tells you the expectation level is there. And again, Evans is a guy that goes for deeper patterns, right? That means more time for plays to develop, which means Tristan Wirf's absence could be a bigger deal.
The Atlanta Falcons come in with an 8.5 win total, plus 125 to the over on DK. One of my best bets earlier this week, Atlanta to make the playoffs in the NFC at plus 155. Jeff, we could talk about Michael Penix. We could talk about how much we like Drake London, but I think if we're looking at this win total, if we're looking at the Falcons as a potential division winner, I think it's going to come down to the defense. This has been one of the worst pass rushes in the NFL consistently over the last few years, 31st in sacks a year ago. But we saw the Falcons make some pretty drastic steps in the draft to address that.
Yeah, Jalen Walker taken with their normal first-round pick, and then they traded up with the Rams to get another first-round pick, gave up their first-round pick in 2026 for James Pierce, a player that not everyone buys, but did have a good season at Tennessee last year. But they think they got two really good pass rushers in the process there. We'll see about that. They certainly are investing as if that for that purpose, though. So we'll see. I do like, but I'm going to throw in one thing real quick on the Falcons. I do like my Drake London props over 150.5 everywhere but DK. DK it's a little higher, but you can find a 150.5 and the best juice is at BetMGM at minus 110. Again, use RotoWire's Players Futures page so you can search around on the same page and see the various different props, yardage props, player props, awards props, you name it there. Just use promo code VSiN and you get 15% off any RotoWire subscription.
Yeah, that season-long receiving prop coming in at 1,050.5 yards. Again, go check that out over at RotoWire. Compare all those prices. Jeff, let's talk about the Carolina Panthers team with a win total sitting at 6.5, minus 130 to the over. There is some Panthers optimism this season after what we saw over the second half of 2024. But look, we could talk about the Falcons and their struggles in terms of the pass rush. Hard to overstate how bad the Panthers were defensively last year. I mean, historically bad against the run, gave up the fourth most rushing yards ever in NFL history, the most given up in the last 45 seasons. This is a team that also gave up the most points ever. And, playing an extra game, 17-game schedule, that's going to be a part of it. But I think the Panthers are moving in the right direction, Jeff. I don't know that I'm ready to bet the over on this win total. I think this is still a roster that is in a multi-year retooling process. And then they've started to accomplish some of that, but there are just so many holes to fill, especially on defense.
Yeah, absolutely. They weren't able to get Milton Williams to take their money. At one point in free agency, it looked like they're going to get him too. But they spent a lot on free agency on that defense there, especially in the middle. Two defensive tackles, Tershawn Wharton being the big one there. Spent on Patrick Jones, on Trevon Mooring, former Raider there in the secondary. So they really spent on their defense. Is it enough? Not quite sure. I'm with you, Nick. I don't think I'm betting the under on them, but I'm also not going out of my way to bet the over. One player I will bet the over on is Chuba Hubbard, though. Offensively, he ran for 10 touchdowns last year. They signed Rico Dowdle to be his backup. I don't view Dowdle as a big threat around the goal line. Just 2 rush TDs last year, just 5 attempts inside the 5-yard line. They don't really want to kind of force. Dallas didn't want to try to force him around the goal line. I think Chuba Hubbard, who was pretty efficient there in that respect, I think he's a good bet to reach his over 6.5 rush TDs. Plus 120 on the over. As always, it's a little bit of a bet on health. And I got that rush prop at Caesars, by the way.
I signed him to a new contract last year. I think Chuba Hubbard is one of those guys that, 2-3 years from now, when the Panthers are hopefully, truly an ascending team. I don't know if he's on the roster, but I think in the short term, he's still a huge piece in that offense. And I will say, Panthers' schedule is pretty reasonable. They have some games early in the season where they'll have a chance to get off to a good start. Jacksonville, Arizona, Atlanta, New England, Miami, those first 5 weeks of the season. Probably feel like you got to win 2 or 3 of those to get off on the right foot. Jeff, we've saved the best for last. The New Orleans Saints, a 5-12 outfit last season. I have already played the under on the 5.5 wins for New Orleans this season, minus 120 to the under over at DK. Derek Carr has retired, at least for now. We expect Tyler Shuck to see the majority of the starts this season. It's bleak. It's bleak for me right now in New Orleans, Jeff. Really only 2 guys that we're concerned about on this team in terms of fantasy?
Probably Alvin Kamara, Chris Olave. I mean, I think you could squint and make a case for Rashid Shaheed, maybe Devin Neal in dynasty leagues, because at some point, Kamara's probably got to have, who's been hurt nearly every season of his career, at least a little bit. I think is someone that you got to consider as needing replacement there. So that's maybe someone I'm drafting. But yeah, I don't understand the Saints. I won't belabor the point. They might be drafting another quarterback next year and wasting after spending pick 40 this year on Tyler Shutt.
We'll talk some more fantasy later in the show. We'll have our tight end, overvalued and undervalued players. Well, we'll hit that with Alan Syslowski coming up later in the hour. But it's play it or pass it time when we come back. NFC South edition here on VSiN Training Camp today.
And they're off.
Football season the sharp way with a VSiN Pro subscription. Right now, grab our football special for just $175. An early bird deal that gives you full VSiN access through the Super Bowl. That includes our NFL betting guide, loaded with team previews, power ratings, and season-long best bets. Plus, pro picks sent to your inbox daily, betting splits from DraftKings and Circa, live shows on the VSiN Watch app, and so much more. Don't wait. Sign up now at VSiN.com/subscribe and join us on the Sports Betting Network. This is VSiN's Football Training Camp Week, only on the Sports Betting Network. You're tuned in to VSiN Training Camp today on the Sports Betting Network.
Welcome back to VSiN's Training Camp today. Jeff Erickson and Nick Whalen here. With Kelly Bidlin out of town, producer extraordinaire Wyatt Tomchek has really let his hair down for our next segment, Play It or Pass It. We've got some fun props for you coming up. First, though, football season is right around the corner, and there's no better way to lock in your fantasy dominance early than with Best Ball on DraftKings, where you draft once and ride your roster all season long. And right now, DraftKings is giving all customers a can't-miss offer. Draft one, get one. Enter a lineup in the $15 million Best Ball contest for just $20, and you'll score another Best Ball ticket to play free for a share of $15 million, giving you a second shot to win big. Download the DraftKings Daily Fantasy app now to draft your $20 Best Ball lineup to play for a share of $15 million, and get a second ticket to play free for a share of $15 million. Draft one, get one. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY at 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. 18 plus in most eligible states, but age varies by jurisdiction. Eligibility restrictions apply. Void where prohibited. One per customer. Enter the Best Ball $15 million headliner contest by September 4th, 2025 to get one bonus entry. $20 entry fee required. The reward expires in 30 days. See terms at DraftKings.com/NFL-best-ball. Sponsored by DraftKings. All right, Nick, it's time for Play It or Pass It. Let's go Tampa Bay Bucs style here. Baker Mayfield to have the most interceptions thrown, 10-1. Play it or pass it.
Yeah, producer Wyatt in his bag right away here as we start with the Buccaneers. Had not really put a whole lot of thought, Jeff, into the most interceptions markets until last night when I started prepping for this. But this is an interesting one. Baker did lead the NFL last season with 16. Actually was tied with Kirk Cousins, who also threw 16 picks. Baker ranked 5th in the NFL in total pass attempts. Everyone who ranked ahead of Baker Mayfield in terms of interception percentage is either out of the league or clearly no longer a full-time starter. Anthony Richardson would be the one possible exception if he does win and hold that job for Indianapolis. But I would not really bet Anthony Richardson in this market because I think if he's throwing enough interceptions early in the season, Jeff, to potentially lead the league, he's probably going to end up losing his job. So there's a reason that he's way down the board at 35-1. You know, I think in terms of other viable candidates, you're looking at Geno Smith, who threw 13 picks last year, Bo Nix, Sam Darnold, Jared Goff. They were close behind at 12. Look, I don't mind Baker Mayfield at 10-1. I think there's enough value here that I would play this, but I'd also look at Sam Darnold, who's 10-1. I would look at Michael Penix at 15-1. You know, I'm high on the Falcons. I'm high on Michael Penix, but we still have a pretty small sample as far as he's concerned. Wouldn't be shocked, if he encountered some bumps along the way. And then I think you have to look at Jared Goff at 20-1, given the price, given the fact that we could see some changes. We could see a step back for this offense with no Ben Johnson. The other name that really stuck out to me, Jeff, is Tyler Shuck at 17-1. Now, in terms of interception percentage, I think there's a good chance that Tyler Shuck could be among the league leaders, but it's similar concern with Anthony Richardson when it comes to Shuck is that if he's throwing a ton of picks early in the season, maybe the Saints just pivot over to Spencer Rattler.
Yeah. That's exactly. And I think that's why, the least amount of job security makes it hard for that there. You really have to put in the work early to be able to build up a big lead in the interception lead and hang on. So, yeah, I think that's a tricky one to bet him at least. Interesting prop to say the least. Let's stick with the Bucs to have over 4.5 division wins. They're 4-2 last year in the NFC South. Loss to the Falcons. Remember both of those games against the Falcons. That was when Kirk Cousins was still good, and we liked him on the quarterback. Plus 150, Nick, to go over 4.5 division wins this year. Play it or pass it?
Pretty easy pass for me. Yeah. I don't think there's a whole lot of value here. I certainly need better than plus 150 to invest. I think there are other ways to kind of skirt around this market where you can generate some more value. I mean, Bucs won the division last year. They went 4-2, so they went under this number. Both losses, of course, came to the Atlanta Falcons, like you said, and it's completely conceivable that this team could be tripped up by Carolina in one of those matchups. I don't know about the Saints. I think you do get two free wins against New Orleans. So that does give you a nice baseline. But then you got to go 3-1 against Atlanta and Carolina. And I think this could be another year where they struggle against the Falcons, and again could see the Panthers tripping them up. So this is a pretty easy pass for me on that over 4.5.
Yeah, I agree with the logic there. It's a shame we're not going to see a classic Evans Lattimore Bucks Saints game this year. Some of the highest brand of entertainment you can get in the NFC South. Let's move it on to the Falcons. Kyle Pitts. Just saying the name makes me shudder a little bit there. But over 525.5 receiving yards, minus 110. Play it or pass it.
This is just nasty stuff from producer Wyatt. I knew he'd find a way to sneak Kyle Pitts in here. And it's such a low number, Jeff, that of course you have to think about it. 525.5. He had 602 yards and 667 yards over the last 2 seasons. Did play 17 games in both of those years. I mean, if I'm optimistic on Michael Penix, I'm optimistic on Drake London, the Falcons offense overall, I think I have to include Kyle Pitts in that conversation. But this is still a pass for me. I mean, if he had missed 1 or 2 games last year, he probably goes under this number. There's just a little too much health risk when you're talking about a tight end who has kind of been scraping by as far as going over this number despite not missing any time. You also have to be concerned, Jeff, when you look at the target fall off. 2 years ago, he had 90 targets, just 74 last season. I know some people are talking themselves back into Kyle Pitts, given the basically free acquisition cost in fantasy drafts, but I want nothing to do with this.
Yeah, I hear you. Just too many scars there. Even last year, I'm like, this never works. But what if it works for me? Yeah, it was one of those moments there. So I'm going to pass on that one as well. Going 2-0 for the Falcons against the Panthers, plus 175. Play it or pass it.
So initially I wanted to play this, Jeff, but did some digging on, the history between these two teams. So you go back a decade, Atlanta's 13-7 straight up against Carolina in that span, but they have not swept the Panthers, who have been a very bad team multiple times in this range since 2019. They've alternated wins and losses for the last 10 meetings, and Carolina is actually currently favored when these teams meet in Charlotte in week 3. I believe they're 1.5 point favorites. Atlanta, of course, favored at home for that second matchup. Now, if you were to parlay those 2 games and just take Atlanta on the money line, and most books will not actually allow you to do this, but the current money line prices on a parlay would come out to plus 227. So I think when you compare that to the plus 175, not quite enough value here. This is not what we would call a positive EV bet, Jeff. So I think Carolina can be frisky enough to potentially take one of those games, particularly if they catch them at home in week 3. So I will pass on this one. Jeff, my turn to throw a couple your way. We'll start with the Carolina Panthers, and we're taking a look at rookie wide receiver Ted McMillan. Ted McMillan to put up 1,000 plus receiving yards as a rookie this season, plus 275. Play it or pass it.
I am going to play it. I think it's going to be really close. I think it'll come down to the wire here. As you alluded to in the notes, since 2010, 17 rookie wide receivers have gone for 1,000 plus yards. We had 3 last year. 2023, we only had 1. But I think of the rookie receivers this year, I think Ted McMillan, who was drafted first among them, I'm not counting Travis Hunter. I think he's his own special type of player, but I think he's the most likely of this rookie class to do so. And in part because I look at the competition on the team. I don't really see anybody else on this team being an alpha. Adam Thielen was kind of that guy once he came back from injury, once Bryce Young kind of established that connection with him. I think as long as McMillan stays healthy, he's the guy I think will get the leading number of targets there. I think he just gets over that 1,000-yard threshold. So I'll play it, but maybe like a half a unit bet. It's going to be, it wouldn't be like a strong bet for sure.
All right, we got another producer Wyatt special here. The Carolina Panthers to have exactly 3 wins 5 weeks into the season. This one at plus 285. Are we playing it?
We are not playing it. These are all reasonable games for the Panthers. At the Jaguars, there'll be 3-point underdogs there currently. At the Cardinals, 4.5-point dogs. Home against the Falcons, as you alluded to, already favored in this one, minus 1.5 though. At the Pats, plus 3.5. Home against the Dolphins, plus 1.5. Okay, so they have to overcome the odds in at least 2 of those games to get to the 3 wins. I would think that you need like a price of, especially to get exactly 3. I think I need something like around 4 or 5 to 1 to be able to get that exacta, if you will. So I'm going to pass it.
All right, we don't want to shortchange the New Orleans Saints here, Jeff. We only got time for one of these, so I'm gonna pick this one. Play it or pass it. Regular season points scored under 331.5 for the Saints.
Yeah, play it, and maybe a strong play it there. They scored 338 last year, put up 91 in their first 2 games. They're worse this year. They're probably either going to have Tyler Shuck or Spencer Rattler at QB. Maybe they'll go back and forth between the two of them. The wide receiver core won't be as decimated as it was last year, most likely, but this is a team that I think is going to really be on the struggle bus this year.
I love this one. Absolutely love this one. I'm playing the under. 27% of their total points scored last season, Jeff, came in the first 2 weeks of the season. I don't think they're putting up 91 in weeks 1 and 2. Again, we got to head to break here on VSiN Training Camp today. Alan Syslowski joining us next. We'll talk some Rookie of the Year long shots with him. Stay tuned.
As sports fans, we may cheer for different teams, but there's one thing that we can all agree on. We want the game to be big. And with 3 levels, 30 cabanas, a 143-foot screen, 6 clean pools, and endless cold drinks, it doesn't get any bigger or any better than Stadium Swim in Las Vegas. All sports, all seasons. It's more than a pool deck. Stadium Swim. It's the only thing like it in the world.
You're in it now. VSiN's football training camp week is underway all week long. Our experts are breaking down season-long props, futures, fantasy draft strategy, playoff picks, and award predictions. Everything you need to be ready for when the season kicks off. And every morning at 10 a.m. Eastern, catch VSiN Training Camp Today, your daily deep dive into sleepers, sharp bets, and expert analysis. This is your camp, your prep, your edge. Only on VSiN, the sports betting network. This is VSiN's Football Training Camp Week, only on the Sports Betting Network. You're tuned in to VSiN Training Camp today on the Sports Betting Network.
Nick Whale and Jeff Erickson back with you. It's the Friday edition of VSiN Training Camp today, Training Camp week, rolling along here on the network. All football talk all the time. We're going to open up the progressive guest line and go to our first guest of the day. He's joined us many times over on Prop Points here on the network. Alan Syslowski, one of our football experts at rotowire.com. You can check him out on Twitter at Alan Syslowski. Alan, welcome in, man. Got a lot that we want to cover with you here. Some fantasy talk, some of your favorite futures, and we'll start in the Offensive Rookie of the Year market. Alan, we've talked about plenty of candidates for that award throughout the week, but you have some interesting names that you're looking at on your list. I know you like Omarion Hampton. That number now down to 10-1, by the way, at the DraftKings Sportsbook, was in that 16 to 18-1 range earlier this week. You got a couple long shots that you like as well, but let's start on Hampton. What appeals to you about him?
Yeah, I think that what we talked about the last time I was here needs to be repeated in a sense where the awards market is a dynamic, moving, shifting beast that you should be making multiple bets on as the season goes along. I mean, how many times? The best example is at the quarterback position when, you know, an MVP candidate like a Mahomes, for example, has a couple bad games and then his odds get longer. So you want to place those bets. And then Lamar Jackson has a couple bad games or non-statistically significant games, and then his odds get better for the bettors and, you know, worse for the house. So it's always a moving, shifting thing. And what we just brought up here was Omarion Hampton, the rookie running back on the LA Chargers. It was 16-1, moved to 10-1. I still like it, and that's based on the news that Najee Harris, the veteran that they signed in the offseason, is probably going to miss some time in training camp due to the fireworks injury, non-related football injury list. And what that does to me is that gives at least Omarion Hampton the runway to seize the lead back job. And there's no one that doesn't think that Omarion Hampton's an elite talent. The Chargers said themselves they were shocked that he was there at 22. They were probably thinking about a wide receiver, but couldn't pass on talent at the running back position, even though they already had Najee Harris. Now, if Najee Harris misses extended time, or just, you know, isn't going to fire on all cylinders because he's not getting integrated into the offense, this leaves it wide open for Hampton to outproduce, you know, everyone's favorite rookie running back, Ashton Genty. And you could easily see that 10-1 number plus 1,000 go to 800, go to 750. And then if he has a big game in week one, forget it. It's going to be like plus 350, plus 250. So I still like getting that number at 10-1, even though, as you pointed out, the odds are not as good as yesterday, but only we had a time machine in gambling, right?
Yeah, and I think another thing about this is not just the fluidity of these rankings, but also, you know, you can shop around on these too, on these odds. Like for instance, that the Hampton one, you can find it 14-1 at BetMGM. So definitely shop around, find your best price, I think, is the other thing about these. Let's talk a little
for that,
deeper.
Jeff. No one's got time for that shopping around nonsense. Stop it.
Well, that's why you use RotoWire's Players Futures page. Hey, I get to prop it twice in one show there. Faishel Tootin, we're going to stay in Florida here. 40-1 at the DraftKings Sportsbook. If you're looking for a long shot, do you like him?
Well, yeah, there's a lot of talk in both gambling circles and in fantasy football circles that Faishel Tootin, the rookie running back that the Jaguars drafted in the 4th round, there's a lot of parallels here to what Tampa Bay did in 2024. And what do I mean by that is now they bring over head coach Liam Cohen, who ran the offense in Tampa Bay. And what did they do in Tampa Bay? They drafted a 4th round running back in Bucky Irving, who basically pushed all the other runners out of the way and made himself known. And now, not only is he, you know, one of the better running backs in the NFL, he's a top 10 fantasy pick in most leagues. So you have to tell yourself the story when you get into these long shots. Now, the GM of the Jaguars, James Gladstone, actually mentioned Faishel Tootin in his pitch to the ownership when he wanted the job. He said, hey, there's this running back that I'm going to take. He's a speedster. We have him all lined up for that early 4th round, and then they secure him. And now, look, Faishel Tootin had a very publicized first fumble on his first carry in practice, and that basically put him out of favor with bettors and fantasy players. That's ridiculous. Come on. We've all had our first day at school, our first day at a job. You're a little nervous. Things happen. He's still a speedster running back with game-breaking speed, and he can hit the home runs regularly for this Jacksonville Jaguars team, who's going to be keeping the defenses that play them are going to be keeping eyes on Brian Thomas and touted second overall pick Travis Hunter. It's going to leave a lot of running room for Bashal Tutin. And if Tutin can get some explosive runs and have even a pretty good season, this 40-1 number is very much live as we get into maybe, October, November. You could see it maybe cut in half.
Talking with Alan Syslowski, one of our football experts at rotowire.com, joining us on the Progressive guest line. Alan, I know you got some fantasy takes to get off, so we will get to those in a moment. But I do want to get your quick thoughts on the Coach of the Year market. I know you're looking at Dan Campbell at 22-1. I actually like him as well. Laid out that case earlier in the week. You're looking at Kevin O'Connell as well. He's at 45-1 for a reason, Alan, because no one has gone back-to-back as the Coach of the Year since Joe Gibbs in the early 80s.
Yeah, the KO. I'm on Team KOC the whole way here. Kevin O'Connell has made such a great offensive environment and had team success. Now, usually the teams that get Coach of the Year, the coach that gets this award is someone that had a bad situation last year and they make the playoffs this year, right? That's easy. But a lot of times these guys don't go back to back because they have a similar infrastructure. If Kevin O'Connell can do it with Sam Darnold, right? Get, basically, what they have 14 wins last year, and then get to do it again with essentially what's a rookie quarterback in JJ McCarthy because he didn't play last year. If he can do it again, it's him, right? And he has to be in consideration at 45-1, man. I'm willing to take that shot. It's just, like I said, it's unlikely, which is why it's priced that way. But I think if they have similar success, and why wouldn't they? They have the same infrastructure except for the quarterback. This would make it so Kevin O'Connell is just the new quarterback whisperer. Reclamation project with Sam Darnold and with J.J. McCarthy, that would be Coach of the Year worthy to me.
All right, Alan, let's jump into your fantasy takes here. Let's start off with a couple of your sleepers, a couple of guys you like. We'll start off. You got a couple of Buffalo Bills on your list.
Yeah, I think Keon Coleman, when you're looking at fantasy leagues, he's the second-year player. He was drafted at the top of the second round last year. I mean, he's a second-round pick, so we kind of discount him. But what was that, 2 picks away from being a first-round pick in the NFL? Where's this arbitrary line that we draw? And Keon Coleman was considered a little bit of a raw project coming out and was about to break out, had 2 big games before he got injured. And when you get injured in the NFL, I mean, sure, listen, if I stub my toe, I can't even go to work the next day, Jeff. But if you get injured in the NFL, it's going to be hard to continue high levels of performance. I saw enough of a breakout to say, hey, maybe this is going to be something that continues into next year. And the best part about it is we have an MVP level quarterback in Josh Allen who doesn't have a declared alpha. Right? The alpha role is wide open. They have some pretty nice players we like Khalil Shakir. They have Dalton Kincaid. They have some running backs there that are going to be fantasy relevant, but there's no declared wide receiver. So why not Keon Coleman? You get him in like the 8th or 9th round of a lot of fantasy drafts. And I think there's enough upside there that I'm going to want him in every single one of my meaningful fantasy football leagues.
Alan, I'm more curious to get to a couple of your busts here at the wide receiver position. These are guys who almost always go in the first 2 rounds of drafts, including Puka Nacua, who's frequently a round 1 pick. So why are you out on him, and why are you out on Jackson Smith and Jigba?
I like Puka Nacua, but taking him in the first round to me seems like lunacy. The guy doesn't get a lot of targets inside the red zone, hasn't been a big touchdown scorer, plus missed a lot of games in college. He's missed long stints in the NFL. And they add literally the best goal line wide receiver in the NFL, Devontae Adams. Devontae Adams is 32 years old. That's a concerning age. But Sean McVay and the Rams, I think they've been pretty spot on with evaluating talent. They move Cooper Kupp out, bring Adams in. I mean, Adams is like a wide receiver version of a goal line running back. So add all that up. The touchdown upside is not there for Puka. Man, taking him in the first round just seems way too risky for me. And then quickly, Jackson Smith and Jigba. A lot of his damage came in the slot last year for Seattle. And now you add Cooper Kupp. And if Kupp has anything left, that's going to push JSN outside, making him a little bit more risky than a traditional second-round pick.
Alan, real quickly, we got like 15 seconds on this. You're lower than market on Bucky Irving. Why?
Bucky Irving hasn't proven that he could do it for a full NFL season. He's a great running back, but I want to see him hold up before we take him as a top 6 running back in fantasy football.
All right, there we go. Plenty of proven options available in that mid-second round range at the running back position. Great stuff from our guy, Alan Syslowski. You can check out all of his work over at rotowire.com. Give him a follow on Twitter at Alan Syslowski. We got to head to break, but we'll move on with our next division preview when we come back. The AFC South, America's division, coming up next here on VSiN Training Camp Today.
Introducing the $500 trifecta. Use your GBank Visa signature credit card within 3 months of account